Todd, and I'm going to say whenever you get elected, and you know there's a lot of talk about wanting to vote how we want you to vote. How do you plan to keep in contact with all the people that you represent to get their input on how you should vote on an issue?
I get asked that a lot, and it's something that I have no trouble answering. There are a number of dimensions to how you run your congressional office, and I think that's what a big part of it comes down to. But ultimately, it's the member of Congress, your representative, who has to set the right tone from the top down in their office, and I will. We will be answering letters. We won't be ignoring letters. We'll be answering phone calls. But for an oversight, you'll be getting an answer to everything that comes through our office.
I was leaning more towards, are you going to send something out like, here's a major piece of legislation, quick blurb, how do you feel I should vote on your behalf?
My preference would be to visit with you. It'd be to keep doing stuff like this. Yes, that's a really good idea. I'm not going to poll every issue, because the other side of it is we do have a representative democracy, and the worst thing I could see would be politicians so concerned about getting reelected, every issue they look at the opinion polls rather than trying to educate on a particular issue. So that's part of your responsibility as well. But yes, I will consult with you, and I'll ask people what they think works best. You know, we need to be able to make more informed decisions as a constituent, so we'll try and assist there. I mean, we're here, we're meaning our campaign, and then later, perhaps, our congressional office, to serve all of you. I mean, you're in charge. So if I'm hearing feedback that we need more direction before I cast a vote, I'd be happy to do that. But I will be visiting. I'll be a real hard-working person. I'll come back on weekends. I'll talk to groups like this, not just people who are going to write big checks. As important as that is in today's day and age, you have to stay engaged with far more people than that, and the challenges they're facing, and the vision they have for the country. I have another creative idea, and I kind of want to do, I'll do a little poll here on the spot. And I've had this idea brewing around in my head for a number of months now. Is everyone familiar with these bookmobiles that libraries have? Yes. Okay. Well, I think they're a great resource for people that either don't have the time to go out to the library, or maybe physically they're unable to go to a library, or elderly, or whatnot. What if you were to have a mobile congressional office that stopped in designated places on a regular basis and helped constituents not just with their casework, but shared with them where we were on a particular issue and got your input? Because I'm seeing some affirmative nods. Wouldn't it have been nice to be able to share a piece of our mind with Baron Hill and tell him our thoughts on the most consequential?
We have.
I saw a hand here, and I don't want to play favorites, so whoever talks first.
I got a question. Go ahead.
Does the President of the United States or anybody in his administration have the authority, number what, putting money like Obama's been doing to bail out Wall Street and AIG and the rest of these high rollers?
Well, you could get to the constitutional grounds, and I haven't heard it justified on any. They just do it, which is one of my criticisms. But beyond the constitutional grounds, and that is something I would have a staff attorney. I think you need one on your staff if you're a member of Congress, so that if you take the Constitution seriously, you have someone to go research all these issues. So that's something I do, sir. I'm not avoiding your question, but what I'm going to say is on economic grounds and on grounds of individual liberty, it makes absolutely no sense for our federal government to be taking over private enterprises. So those are the grounds where I would oppose it without even getting to the constitutional question. So, I know you wanted the constitutional answer, but I take it seriously. I don't want to give you an answer if I'm not sufficiently sure. Maybe he's got some creative justification he's citing, but I suspect no, I haven't heard anything. Yes, sir.
Todd, do you honestly believe that there is a company that's too big to fail? I mean,
No, that's the justification that we heard about these things being too big to fail. We have a regulatory system, one that's intrusive and frankly has grown out of control in this country. But there is one line of argument, economic argument, which is that you got these large financial institutions that they're so connected with businesses out in the economy and other financial institutions that if one falls, it's kind of like a domino effect. You start to see others that fall. There are a lot of smart people that believe that, but I don't think it should get to that point. One of the reasons so many of these institutions are so large is because they're protected by our government. And that's what causes them to get that large. So my preference would be, as in the health insurance market, to make these firms compete against one another to keep them honest. And, yes?
in a free market, they have to be allowed to fail. They can't be upheld by the government, any company. Because if you don't break them up, I mean, it just becomes a government entity then that we do not want.
Well, here's the too big to fail. Here's why the argument fails. The too big to fail argument, I think. Imagine a really, really large and inefficient business, right? And then imagine just a small coffee shop down the road that runs inefficiently. If the taxpayers are required to bail out the little coffee shop, it's not going to require a whole lot of money. We wouldn't want to spend our money wastefully, but if taxpayers are required to bail out a multinational automobile company that's very inefficient, what a waste. All the more reason to let it go belly up, right? So that's where I go. And am I speaking? I'm trying to speak loudly because I know maybe some people can't hear me, and because I'm a Marine. I take a little pride in that, having a command voice. But if you want me to tone it down because you're up close or something, just tell me, please. Yes, sir. Back. Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. If elected to Congress, what would be your stand on the Second Amendment?
My question was about the Second Amendment. I support it. What I typically tell people is I support the whole darn Constitution. If I don't like something in it, I have an obligation to try and amend the Constitution and change it. But as long as it's there, it's the law of the land, and I'm going to fight for it. Now, the Second Amendment, my interpretation of it, it's an individual right. It's an essential individual right. It's second in our Bill of Rights, and I don't think that's an accident. It's a pretty darn high priority. When the Bill of Rights passed in 1793, there were no organized police forces to speak of in this country. People had firearms. They had, mountaineer cabins out in the country, and their local police force was themselves and maybe some of their neighbors. So this was an issue of individual self-defense. And I think it's been misconstrued in recent years by many progressives, many of them sitting on the federal bench, to mean something different. Our Supreme Court has recently recognized that the Second Amendment does constitute an individual right. I think it was a moment of wisdom. So I applaud that decision. I do believe, and there's some question now as to whether the Second Amendment right, it's a federal right, also applies at the state level. Applies to our the 14th Amendment is how many of our federal rights are applied at the state level of government. So kind of a boring constitutional issue to some, but it's pretty important. There's a lot at stake here, and that's still playing out in the courts.
There's a number of states that have passed legislation to manufacture firearms in their state. And as long as they don't leave the state, they're not violating anything. They don't have any laws. They did that up in Montana. And Corydon is building a plant to live right now. Manufacture gunpowder, load ammo, and all that stuff. I have a daughter that lives up there. She's over the top.
This gentleman had a question. Thank you, sir.